Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Uncork PA. I'm your host, Missy Wilson, a second-generation winery owner at Cedar Ridge Vineyards in Kutztown, and I'm happy to have been part of the Pennsylvania wine industry for almost 20 years now. I'll be sharing with you the wines, the wineries, the vineyards, and all the hidden gems that are Pennsylvania wine. We're coming to the end of October, which means the end of Pennsylvania Wine Month, but that does not mean the end of enjoying a variety of Pennsylvania wines. Today, we're going to be talking about the Pennsylvania Somm Judgement with organizer Scott Zoccollilo, and the Somm Judgement varies from typical wine competitions because it includes various sommeliers, beverage directors, and other notable industry representatives from the region's top wine programs, and they taste blindly over the course of 2 rounds. The 2022 Somm Judgement was held in Pennsylvania in September, with the winners just having been released in October as part of Pennsylvania Wine Month. If you would like additional information about the wines that have been chosen as this year's winners, the top 10, and the honorable mentions, head on over to Pennsylvania Wineries Association's website at pennsylvaniawine.com to see the full list of winners. So today I'm happy to have with us on the program Scott Zoccollilo. Scott has been involved in the Pennsylvania wine scene for years, first serving as a beverage manager for restaurants such as Nectar, and now he's part of Del Frisco's restaurant group. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, Scott.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So first, let's start with your background a bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what a beverage manager is? And if people are interested in doing this, like, how did you get your start in this position?
So the beverage manager is obviously in charge of all beverage operations in a restaurant or restaurant group, similar to what a chef would be involved in all kitchen and menu operations behind, in the back of the house. We handle all of the fun drinks at the bar and cocktail programs and spirits and wine. I got into it, I guess, by accident. I went to school for computer engineering and was working part-time as a bartender while I was fighting fires in North Carolina, and really fell in love with the restaurant industry and just loved, I guess, the culture and the history of what beverage has, both, the processes of spirits and brewing and winemaking and how people tend to get together for a drink to celebrate great days and to forget about bad days, and just really loved how all that came together. So anyone who's interested in getting into it, just take a deep dive and hop into the restaurant industry.
Well, so in addition to you being the beverage manager, you're actually also a sommelier.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since Netflix had that program, the documentary Somm, years ago, people have really kind of been not only interested, but kind of obsessed with like somms. Can you tell us a little bit more about what a sommelier is and what some of the various levels there are to it is and the exams and the whole process?
Sure. So sommelier is a beverage professional. We tend to focus most of our knowledge and our background on wine, but we deal with spirits and beer and sake, cigar service, depending on the state and country that you're in. It's really just about enhancing the guest experience through the beverage scene. The documentary definitely brought a lot of attention to the Somm community, and we've seen a huge influx of people wanting to join it, not realizing how kind of exclusive, but how important the training part of it was. Through the Court of Master Sommeliers, there are 4 levels. There's the introductory course and exam as level 1, the certified exam, which the majority of people do have an opportunity to take and pass. Level 3 is the advanced sommelier, which I am, and then level 4 is the goal, is the master sommelier exam, which has a extremely low passing rate. And I've been fortunate enough to attempt twice, and I've been unsuccessful, but my determination is there. Nobody passes it their first time.
So you're in that process still. You haven't given up. How much time do you actually spend studying for the exam, and what type of knowledge? What's the difference between like how much knowledge you need for that level 3 versus working for that master's exam?
Wow, level 3 to master's. The amount of knowledge is probably 10 to 15 fold easily. We took the exam most recently in July. We got our results early part of August, and then the study group that I'm in, we took August off to give our brains a rest, but we've been studying nonstop since September. We don't take the exam again until next May, so that's 10 months of of books and tasting and flashcards and study groups. And, my goal is usually 3 to 5 days a week, anywhere between 2 and 4 hours a day. So it breaks down to something like 5,000 hours over the 10 months. I think if my math's right. Um,
So basically, they only offer one exam per
mhm.
year, correct? So everybody's studying up for that same one at the same time. So the people that you've kind of hooked up with in your study group, are they only from the Philly area, or have you met people kind of from all over the world doing this?
So we do have a good group here in Philly. There were 3 of us that attempted the exam last year. There's going to be, I think, 5 of us attempting this year, but we studied with people from North Carolina, Florida, Texas, California, one in Hawaii, which is great with the different time zones. I'm a late night person, so I like to study from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So it's great for the California and Hawaii counterparts because it's prime time for them. We meet people from all over the country and all over the world, and you form connections and network out, and we support each other.
That's fun. So when you go down for your SOM exam, for that master's exam, is it like a 1 day exam, or are you interacting with all your fellow friends and people taking the exam over the course of a couple days?
So the exam itself is broken into 3 parts. The first part of the exam is the theory examination. It's an oral exam. It's about 100, I think it was 105 questions last time in 50 minutes. And you have to be successful at that part to be invited to the tasting and service element. So it is a 3-day exam, but it's broken up over a few months. After you pass theory, you usually have a few months to prepare for the next 2. We typically go down a day or 2 ahead of time to make sure there's no last minute flight cancellations and increased stress before we get to the exam. And a lot of us get together for dinner, especially if we haven't seen each other. Not too much heavy drinking the night before the exam. That happens after the exam, for sure.
Well, that's some impressive dedication that you have to wine. The great part is you're actually a major proponent of the Pennsylvania wine industry too, and you were included Pennsylvania wines on the wine list before it was even popular. You've been working with the Pennsylvania Winery Association for the past 6 years on this Somm Judgement. Can you tell us a little bit about how the judgment came into being?
Sure. So when I was at Nectar, great, amazing Asian fusion restaurant in Berwyn, I was working under Chef Patrick Fury, who was very focused on local fare, local ingredients, and when I started with him as the sommelier and manager, he wanted to keep that going. So he gave me full reins, and the whole team out there. So I'm like, well, if we're focused on local ingredients, one of the best local ingredients is going to be local wine. So I just started really exploring, southeastern Pennsylvania for the most part, and then from there it expanded to the entire state. And we grew our Pennsylvania wine offerings at Nectar to about 30 or 40 different offerings. I started seeing it was getting a little bit of resistance. Everyone, you get to, oh, I only drink California, or I only drink French or Italian, and you get that scoff. It's like, really, Pennsylvania? So I'm like, all right, we need to show people that we actually have some world-class wines here. So I tried to replicate the Judgment of Paris, where California went against France in 1976. And I did Pennsylvania versus California. It was an established wine region. I figured if we can hold our own, at least get people to start looking at our Pennsylvania wine list. And 4 out of the top 8 prizes went to PA wines. We dominated the white category, which I think is typical for our state. And it got people to start looking at what we offered by the glass. And every October, I would only offer Pennsylvania wines by the glass, and just to get people to experience it.
That's wonderful. So when you started this idea at Nectar, you just had that handful of wines. You did 8 wines. Now, how many entries do you typically see at the Somm Judgement on a yearly basis?
Sure. So now the Somm Judgement has obviously expanded to all of Pennsylvania, and it's not Pennsylvania versus anyone else. It's just who's showing well. The first year, I think we had 120 wines submitted, give or take, and that's about our average is between about 90 to 110, which is a great opportunity to really taste through all the different parts of the state, different wineries, different winemakers, different varietals that we're using. It's a lot of exposure for the Somms in the area, but also for the wineries.
So, who are the actual judges of this competition? It's a little bit of a different competition, which is really nice. So, who are the judges, and how are they assessing the wines then?
So the judges are based off of, obviously people who are interested in promoting the local wine scene. It's a lot of trained sommeliers. We have some chefs that are involved, beverage managers that have some, background in high quality fine wine production, media, teachers, anyone who's really kind of involved that has a way to really break down the wine objectively and not subjectively. We use a modified 20-point scale that UC Davis uses to judge wines. So the wines are graded 1 through 20 based off of color that you would expect for the varietal and the age, nose and palate for the same qualifications. If it's a Chardonnay, does it taste like a Chardonnay? Does it look like a Chardonnay? And then finish, and we always kind of quantify everything. Is this wine really enjoyable? Is it indicative of the quality that we're producing in our state? And every year it's getting better and better.
That's great. So I had mentioned earlier, you guys do a two tasting system with regards to this. How is the first round different from the second round?
Well, the first round this past year, we had 88 wines submitted. And to have everybody taste through all 88 wines would be a little painful on the palate. So what we do is we break it down into 4 or 5 groups, depending on how many judges we have and how many wines. And the first round is really just picking out which wines are showing the best, whether it's varietal or winery, and kind of narrowing it down to a top 20. So we kind of, elimination rounds. It's not which wines aren't showing well, but which wines really are showing great that should be considered the top in the state. So each table, this past year, we had 4 tables. Each table did 20 wines or so. And then round 2, the top 20 scoring wines are all tasted by everyone. So there's a little bit more detail into each wine. Now you've got, 25 people grading you instead of 8. So you get more, more input. And then round 2 is just that. We go through the same process, 20-point scale, and determine kind of who's scoring the best.
So that's actually a lot of wines for the judges to go through. How do they move through the wines, not only like with it totally affecting their palate, like how much difference do they have in timing between round 1 and round 2, but what do the judges do to make sure that they're not, like, by the end of it, they have consumed, 40 plus wines? How are they not falling over at that point in time?
Can't say that's never happened before, but it's important to, when you're assessing wine, this isn't about drinking and socializing. We always do that after the event. We're tasting and we're spitting. It's not the most glamorous part of the job, but it's important. We obviously make sure that there is some sort of food available, plenty of water available. We take our time. The first round, the 20 wines we do over about 2.5 to 3 hours, taking about a 45-minute hour break, refresh our palates, have something to eat, and then round 2 is about 2 hours as well. So it's about extending everything out, giving ourselves plenty of opportunity to taste the wines, and then once all of that is done, then we socialize and we drink and get a little tipsy sometimes. Yeah.
So being part of this competition and then also being a huge proponent of the Pennsylvania wine industry, you've been drinking and tasting and enjoying Pennsylvania wines for years upon years. How have Pennsylvania wines, how do you feel like they've evolved over the course of the past decade or so?
I think the quality is expanding significantly. I think there's more sharing of information, both successes as well as failures with the winemakers. Have been fortunate enough to go to the Pennsylvania or the Northeast Atlantic Winemaker Association, a gathering of winemakers from New York, Maryland, and Pennsylvania and Jersey, and just the sharing of information and what successes did you have this year? And I'm really having an issue with this. And, how did you combat it? That sharing, that wealth of knowledge with a large group of people is, I think, increased our quality. I also think that we're planting the right grapes and we're trying to figure out exactly what we're doing best in this state. We don't have thousands of years of winemaking knowledge like Italy and France says, but we're catching up and we're doing great.
So let's go briefly back to your role as a somm. So you oversee the wine list. You interact with customers when they're there. A lot of times, similar to wine, people can feel intimidated because of the title sommelier. When customers are dining at your restaurant or at a restaurant that has a somm, how can they use your expertise in helping them guide them to a great option of something on your wine list?
Sure. I mean, the first step is to ask to speak to the sommelier. And I know a lot of people are terrified for a couple of reasons. They think we're going to go over and try and sell them $1,000 bottle, which we love selling $1,000 bottles, but we want to sell you and get you the bottle that you're going to enjoy the most regardless. Don't be afraid to tell us exactly what you're looking to spend. I'm not going to offer a $200 or $300 bottle suggestion if you want to spend $100. Trying to break down the guest's fear, because also so many people they know what they like, but they don't know how to explain it. So that's where we have to come in and like, all right, well, tell me exactly what you're looking for. Well, I want a sweet red wine. There's not a lot of those out there. What you want is a non-tannic wine that's probably more fruit forward. I'm trying to understand exactly what the guest is looking for, but use us. We're a tool. We want to make your experience that much better. Don't be afraid of the sommeliers in the restaurants. We really do care about you having a great experience.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Scott. And make sure that you check out his wine list when you dine out at Del Frisco's Double Eagle Steakhouse on Chestnut Street in Philadelphia. And if you are in the Pittsburgh area, you just opened a new restaurant about a little over a week ago, correct?
We did, yeah. It's at the old Union Trust Building on Fifth and Grant. Absolutely beautiful design. So if you're out in Pittsburgh, it's booming right now. It's a very popular restaurant, and check it out. We got some PA wines on that list too.
Perfect. So no matter what side of the state you're on, enjoy a meal at Del Frisco and enjoy some great wines brought to you by Scott. And thanks so much for giving us a little bit more information about the Somm Judgement.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Missy. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
So, as we mentioned earlier, the 2022 Somm Judgement just took place last month in September, and the results have been tallied, and the winners are actually now known. For wineries to be entered into the Pennsylvania Somm Judgement, the fruit needs to be grown in Pennsylvania. So what that means is that every one of the wines that have been listed as winners, top 10 wine, or honorable mentions started as grapes grown in vineyards throughout the state. That includes this year's winners as well as past year's winners. Many wineries grow their own grapes, but some actually purchase from other vineyards throughout the state as well. So it could be a combination, but the fruit is all grown in Pennsylvania. And this is an important fact to know because flavor profiles of grapes change depending on where they're grown, which is why wines that are made in California taste different than those made in Italy and those from France, and definitely different from those grown here in Pennsylvania. And it's a great opportunity to celebrate and enjoy the amazing wines that are made from grapes that are grown in your backyard. There's an amazing diversity in the wines that have been acknowledged over the past, as we had mentioned, talked about with Scott. People often think about the same grapes over and over when thinking about Pennsylvania wines, but over the course of the past decade, vineyards have been experimenting and expanding on the types of varieties that grapes that they have been growing, and wines that can be successful here in Pennsylvania. In 2021, in addition to the Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc being on top of the list, Stony Run Winery in Kempton actually won Best in State with their Albarino, which is a refreshing white grape originating from Spain. In addition, Gruner Veltliner and Gewürztraminer, both German grapes, were in the top 10. In 2020, awards were given to Viognier, Syrah, and Carmine, and in 2019, we saw Saperavi and Teroldego on the list. There's an amazing diversity about wines that you can enjoy that are grown in Pennsylvania, so don't just automatically assume that they're known for one type of grape. Try looking to try and purchase some of the past winning wines. Here are some wines and wineries that you should definitely check out. So in the past, Stony Run Winery, which has a tasting room in Bridningsville, just right outside of Allentown, enjoy their Albarino and Cabernet Sauvignon. Go within a half an hour drive of there, and you can head up to Gale and Glen Winery with their Gruner Veltliner and Gewürztraminer. Penn's Woods in southeastern PA has been noted for their Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Rosé. And also located in southeastern PA, you can stop by Walt's Vineyard for their Cabernet Franc. If you're more in the northwestern corner of the state, you can check out Mazza Vineyards. They recently won with their Pet Nat Riesling, which is a sparkling, and then Presque Isle also won with a Riesling too. And if you're more towards the middle of the state and you're trying to look for something new or different, Faro Vineyards actually won with their Lemberger, and close by, Del Vino Wine Company produced a beautiful Carmine. So, now for this year's winners and top 10 wines. The Best in Show this year for 2022 was awarded to Bella Terra's 2019 Estate Merlot. So Bella Terra's main winery is located on Hunker, PA, which is located a little bit southeast of Pittsburgh. But they also recently purchased Briar Valley Vineyards, which is located in Bedford in south central PA. And you can visit their website at bellaterravineyards.com for additional information about their wines, locations, and more. If you want to stay on that red route, the best in red was awarded to Armstrong Valley's 2019 Cabernet Franc. Armstrong Valley is located in Halifax, which is just a little bit north of Harrisburg, and you can find additional information about them at armstrongvalleywinery.com. If you're looking for a white, Galen Glen won with their 2020 Riesling as the best white. They're known for their German and Austrian style wines, and you can get additional information about this winery just located south of Jim Thorpe at galenglen.com. If you love the bubbles, which I definitely do, Chad's Ford actually won with a really interesting wine, which is their sparkling Semillon, a little bit of a lesser known grape and definitely a little bit lesser known when you go for the sparkling. Chad's Ford Winery is obviously located in Chaddsford, which is in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, and you can find some additional information about them at chadsford.com. And lastly, if you prefer hybrids, make sure you include Galen Glen's 2020 Chambourcin in your tasting. The rest of the top 10 wines include a 2020 Estate Lemberger from Faro Vineyards, a 2018 Cabernet Franc from Grandview Vineyards, a 2021 Gruner Veltliner from Green Dance, the winery at Sand Hill, a 2021 Dornfelder from Presque Isle Wine Cellars, and the 2020 Cab Franc from Cedar Ridge Vineyards. You can enjoy doing research on these winners, plus you can check out honorable mentions, which is another additional 10 wines for the total 20 that they tasted in round 2, and past year winners by heading to the Pennsylvania Winery Association's website at pennsylvaniawine.com. You want to search for the Somm Judgement. There you'll be able to view the winners of this year, as well as the past 5 years of competition. And you can start planning your trips to visit all of these wineries. There's a great create your own itinerary tool that can also pull directions to get you from one location to the next. Rather try your tasting from home? Give the wineries a call, as many of them offer shipping options for you. If you haven't tried wines from any of these wineries, I definitely recommend giving them a try. So, thanks for enjoying Pennsylvania Wine Month with us in October. And just because there's only a few days left doesn't mean you have to stop enjoying Pennsylvania wines. It's a great time to pull out your favorite Pennsylvania wines or try some new ones. So join us next week as we actually talk about meads and ciders. These specialty wines are becoming more and more popular, and there's more and more options popping up throughout the state. You can definitely check out the Pennsylvania Winery Association's website at pennsylvaniawine.com, as they have a selection of all the meaderies and cideries throughout the state as well. And don't forget to join us on Uncork PA live the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month, starting at noon on Facebook and YouTube. And if you can't join us live, you can always watch the programs whenever works best for your schedule. Plus, you can always just listen to it as an audio version on Apple, Spotify, or wherever your favorite place is to stream your podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the station so you know when when new episodes are posted. We want to thank the Pennsylvania Wine Association for supporting this program with grant money from the PLCB, and we look forward to sharing more hidden gems of the Pennsylvania wine world with you next time. Have a great day.